that what are we doing in terms of planning for upcoming disasters? We can, possibly assume that something will happen this year. The projections say that even long term, we do see recurrent happenings. If it's not a flood, it's a big heat wave, or it's both a couple of months of heat wave followed by a flood, or it's a drought.
I got a chance to visit IDB camp near Thata. So there was like no privacy. There was improper sanitation practices going on. So women goes through a lot of like physical health, and as well as there was like lack of menstrual hygiene management.
What I saw in the floods of 2022, I was there on field as well, that we didn't have people were bringing ration bags, and people were helping through rations, and which were a secondary thing for them. For firstly, they needed evacuation. So hands also deployed a few boats, but obviously I saw that we had quite a limited capacity as a country to respond to that. So better planning, better coordination is needed, and obviously we need more resources to be able to adapt better to the future climate changes. Yeah.
Hello and welcome again to this installment of Front Seat to Climate Change. We've been having conversations with climate experts, and we're focusing on the path that Pakistan's taken since the 2022 floods. And today we're joined by the team from HANDS Pakistan. HANDS is an organization which was at the forefront of the flood response throughout the districts in Sindh and also Balochistan. And we're joined by Maaz and Raima from HANDS Pakistan. So welcome to the show, guys. It's a pleasure to have you, and I think since we've been having these conversations informally for a while, my first question to you, Maaz, is that we know that floods or climate disasters are something that are recurrent in Pakistan now. The projections say that they will continuously happen, and what used to be maybe a 100-year event or a 50-year event is basically a 5-year event now. So what do you think in this regard? What can organizations really do to be prepared to constantly answer the calls for rehabilitation and this sort of the dynamic that you constantly have to be in the field? Are organizations like yours ready, and what is the strategy to deal with climate disasters on a recurrent basis?
All right. Thank you, Dawar, for having us firstly. So as you said, that climate change is something that is increasing in frequency and magnitude as well. And Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change. So these disasters will obviously keep happening. But unless we break that cycle of relief and recovery, we won't be able to move towards long-term rehabilitation and adaptation. So HANDS as an organization has been working since the last almost 47 years in Pakistan in multiple sectors, but primarily disaster management and rehabilitation and adaptation. So what we do is we have quite a systematic way of going about things, not only in relief and recovery, but rehabilitation as well. So we have a few disaster risk management centers across the country. These disaster risk management centers are in main core districts of this. For example, in Sindh there are 13, then there are some in Punjab, and there are some in Balochistan. So they are equipped with the tools and the knowledge and the capacity to respond to disasters immediately. For example, for rescue and relief, there are boats available. There are hygiene kits available. For example, there are medical supplies available. So these are the things that are the contingency stock over there is always available to respond to such events. Besides this, HANDS also has a revolving fund of its own as well. For example, if there is a delay in funds from the UN or other donor organizations, then obviously HANDS can capitalize on its own funds. It's around 1 billion PKR at the moment. So we utilize that funds immediately for the immediate relief and efforts for the people. Besides this, we are also the contingency partners of UNICEF in case of disasters in Sindh, Punjab and Balochistan. So for being a contingency partner, it allows us to capitalize on this and utilize the funds that are already available from them for the projects that are running in a different spectrum, but we can utilize it in case of disasters. They allow us. So these are some of the things which we already practice. Like you said, that since the frequency of disasters is increasing, and we have to keep ourselves capacitated, and we have to keep ourselves more adaptive. So for that, obviously we need more funds for organizations like us. We cannot replace the responsibility of the government. So we have to work with the government, and we have to have we need those funds to be expedited quickly. And there are several humanitarian networks currently doing this. There's a network from the UK called Start Network. So it has a great mechanism of expediting funds quickly after there's a trigger. For example, there's a heat wave. They have a kind of threshold that, for example, if a city faces 40-degree plus for at least 2 nights or 2 days, then there's a trigger, and then they release funds accordingly. So such kind of organizations and networks are required to expedite more funds. So we organizations like ours can function well. Yeah.
So you pointed out, I think this is a great point, that we have to break the cycle between rehabilitation and relief, and also then that you get thinking space to do something. I was thinking, and I think this question can go to Raima as well, that there's a very important communication angle. Like right now, we're sitting in June, and we know that the monsoon comes to Pakistan on 30th of June. So we have about 25 days till monsoon starts. And there are also projections saying that floods can happen again, particularly around the Indus. What sort of comms or communications कि लोगों को पता हो कि ये हो रहा है? हमारे I've heard the stories, और हमने सुना भी है कि जो आपके rural areas में होते हैं, they can see the season and they can tell कि इस साल सैलाब आना है. So what are the sort of communication mechanisms that organizations, because this will be very important in breaking that cycle as well, that you tell them in advance, there's an early warning in place, and then you tell them these are the safer grounds for you to go. So what are those strategies that you guys are working on or have deployed and are sort of recommended that we should be doing?
So yeah, the previous flood identified a significant gaps in our early warning system as well, and community preparedness. So there were like few warnings, but community didn't know how to respond it, or there were few people who didn't receive the information in time. So the government and the NDMA and other authorities, what have to do is that they have to come together. Like they have to involve the NGOs like us, hands. Like we have footprints in all the districts, in remote areas of Pakistan, in remote areas of Sindh. We have our team there. If we receive a timely warnings, we can prepare community, and we can raise awareness, and we can prepare them for the with the proper evacuation plan, and we can guide them what to do during this disaster and how they have to respond it. Because we are prepared. For example, as Maaz said, that we have enough resources, government have enough resources, like they know the flood is coming. So the gap we have identified is community is not prepared, or they are like reluctant to accept it, that something is going to happen, because they don't have much information regarding the climate change. So I think strong mobilization, which organization like HANDS can do, strong proper plans, and the adaptation plans and other things come together, and we can have tackle these disasters.
And there's a point that wherever we intervene as a project, in whichever village or a district, we always create this thing called community-based organization. So a community-based organization basically functions as a democratic unit in a village, where there's a leader, and then they are democratically elected, and then they get to decide how, for example, a project is going to be done for their village. They are the owners, they are the decision makers. We are just the facilitators. So since we have a network of these community-based organizations in 16,000 villages in Pakistan, so for us it's not very difficult to get the early warning messages or early warning system in place. We already utilize SMS for these awareness messages, cable TV, and the local radio network as well. So it's not that difficult, and we also practice this in 2022. But obviously, like I said, for us as an organization, we have limited means. We cannot, cover all of Pakistan, or all of the intervention in all of the affected areas of Pakistan. So yeah, we obviously need more.
You have point out limitations, but Pakistan has this dynamic that the government also says that we have limited resources. If you look at Karachi's heat wave management plan, there's a whole section which says that the local DCs should ask for help from charities to respond to. And that's what we see, that you will have a Churangi and then you'll have these camps for water around them that come and have water. It won't be government-run camps. So in that regard, do you think that sizable investment is being made in just the adaptation angle? Because drinking water to keep cool is an adaptation mechanism. So do we have even minor investments, or do you think that governments completely let this responsibility to NGOs to handle?
So government is supporting, obviously, with it limited means, they are trying to support. A good example of that is the Sindh People's Housing for Flood Affectees project, even though it is supported by the World Bank and the Sindh government, but it is something that is a testament to their efforts, and they are trying to rebuild better. For example, if there's a flood in this year, then obviously those who were living in kacha houses before now have a pakka house which can sustainably withstand another flood. So this is a testament to their efforts, and they are trying to do it, but obviously there needs to be a better coordination between all of the NGOs and the government, which we saw lacking in 2022. There wasn't, I believe it was 2 months since the floods in 2022 that there was a meeting held by the government and the PDMA and the non-profit organizations. That was the first one after 2 months of the floods. So to avoid inefficiencies, to avoid duplication of beneficiaries, avoid duplication of resources, we need to have better coordination. So the government needs to lead there. But with regards to their will and their efforts, they are trying to do it, but there needs to be more structure to it.
So you mentioned the key stakeholders in this answer, that you have the government, you have the development partners, and then you have the local organizations and NGOs, and also number 4, the community-based organizations. So there's this constant back and forth that we are structuring it in a way that, for example, reconstruction of houses or pakka houses, this project came about through the bank, and the development thinking is that these people need pakka houses. But there's also the criticism to this, that did you go and ask the people what sort of houses do they need? Are you bringing a model might not be suitable, is it adapted to the conditions? And then also, in all of our climate conversations, we do have the issue that we make the policy or the plan, and we legislate it, we notify it, and then we tell the people, ye ho gaya, ab aapko ye manna hai. We do not have a model which goes to the people and asks, what do you need? Okay, this is the technical solution we have, do you agree to it? We do not have that back and forth. So in the reconstruction process from kacha to pakka houses, what is the response? Do you think the model is useful? Is it suited to our conditions? What is the result of that effort here?
It was through a participatory approach, I must say, because they involved the non-profit organizations an year before they launched this project, and before they finalized this model. And by involving the implementing partners or the non-profits like HANDS, they also involve the community, because we are already working in the community. We brought them in their sessions, and then they obviously gave their feedback, and then this model was finalized. So HANDS has been reconstructing houses after disaster since 2010 floods. So we also had our own model which we were using. It wasn't very different from the model that World Bank suggested, but it was also based on the local resources and local requirements as per their socio-cultural needs. So this is also following that, and because since they don't have, especially in Sindh, the culture is that the house is basically used for keeping valuable goods or something that they want to keep safe, and usually they sleep outside. So this aspect of having a home for them is very different than to the urban areas of Sindh. So they are quite happy with that. That finally they don't have a mud house, but it's pakka with bricks, and their belongings can be much more safer. And there may be, for example, their women can be safer in that as compared to having a kacha house. So yeah, that's the difference.
I think this last point, particularly about the gender angle, is very important, and this was continuously pointed out even my own work, that we had deliveries in Sawat after the health facilities were destroyed. So there were random roofs that they're using as clinics. During a disaster context that it's ongoing right now, accessibility is very difficult. Are we trying to educate the local populations in a way that they can manage themselves before even the first response comes? because there is a delay in first response. I remember that there was shortage of motorboats. How many motorboats can you have in Sindh, in the land? Where do you bring that? You had fishermen who were in the Manchar, and they could have boats around, but the floodwaters went all over. So what are we preparing our locals enough to deal with it? Are there village leaders that are working with the NGOs like yours? And then also, are they really taking into cognizance the gender angle of this as well? So this is I completely always as people of urban areas, we forget that their dynamics are very different. So what sort of improvement has happened, and what is left that we really need to do?
Yeah, definitely the issue of obviously when there is a disaster, the children and women are the most vulnerable to it, and obviously they are already vulnerable, and after disaster they get more vulnerable. So in case of hands, we already have these community health workers trained in a village where we are working. She's called a Marvi worker, and we use the Marvi, the term, to define her as a lady health worker in that village. So these Marvi workers are capable enough they actually are the change makers for that village, not only in case of health but also education, livelihood. So they try to modify or transform their thinking, that how a person or how a family should be thinking about. For example, family planning. Family planning is a very taboo topic, but this Marvi workers are equipped enough to change their minds about family planning. So these workers already exist in those villages. They are their own people. They don't come from another city or outside to teach them this. They are their own people. So in case of even disasters, we use them to change their mindset.
Or to be the first responders, for example. For example, in case if pregnant women are struggling, then Marvi worker is the best person to guide her better. So how she should be dealing with her pregnancy. So yeah, these are some of the things that we do, and Raima maybe can add.
Yeah, the thing I have observed during the flood is that gender inequality in our responses. So like there were IDB camps. You know the settings of our rural settings, they are very different from the urban settings. So females have a lot of responsibilities already. Like they are caregivers, they have to handle their daily house chores, and despite of that they have to handle their kids and their elders and the sick. So when disaster hits, all the responsibilities multiply by 2. It will be doubled. It has been doubled. So it also affects on their mental health, their physical health. So when I got a chance to visit IDB camp near Thata, so there was like no privacy. There was improper sanitation practices going on. So women goes through a lot of like physical health, and as well as there was like lack of menstrual hygiene management. So it's very necessary because it puts them at health risk. So we in future we have to respond accordingly, and we have to change our disaster responses in a way that it should be gender sensitive. So I must say, not as Maaz said, we have already Marvi workers there. They are enough equipped, and they are like skilled enough to mobilize them. But what if our Marvi workers also are the effectives? So like we don't have anyone else to go there. So there's come the responsibility of NGO and government, that we have to plan our responses in a way that it address every gender.
I think that was very useful to hear, and I think that's also relevant to the last sort of question I have, is that what are we doing in terms of planning for upcoming disasters? We can possibly assume that something will happen this year. The projections say that even long term we do see recurrent happenings. If it's not a flood, it's a big heat wave, or it's both a couple of months of heat wave followed by a flood, or it's a drought. And we are vulnerable. It isn't the ranking that we should be when we say vulnerable, we should be thinking in these terms. Yeah. So is the planning in place also catering to all the learnings of 2022 and what we are seeing, the data that is showing now, what sort of on-ground reality that we can expect?
On-ground reality is quite not enough for us to be able to respond or adapt to future climatic changes. You know that very well. We don't have the resources at the moment. As a country, we don't have the capacity at the moment to be able to, be better equipped to respond to such disasters. For example, Pakistan faced a loss of $34 billion in 2022, and there were pledges made for $15-16 billion, but only a few $100 million were received in actuality. So keeping that in mind, we have to make do with what we have at the moment. For example, for NGOs, we have limited funding, we have limited resources, but we are trying to do our best. And we, like I said when we were talking before the show, that HANDS is currently helping PDMA map areas for better evacuation in those vulnerable districts which are going to be affected in future floods. So such small things can be done better, because in 2022 I don't think we had these mapping done for evacuation. So this is a good step in the right way, but we need to be much more quicker in how we plan, and we have to implement it. What I saw in the floods of 2022, I was there on field as well, that we didn't have people were bringing ration bags, and people were helping through rations, and which were a secondary thing for them. For firstly, they needed evacuation. So HANDS also deployed a few boats, but obviously I saw that we had quite a limited capacity as a country to respond to that. So better planning, better coordination is needed, and obviously we need more resources to be able to adapt better to the future climatic changes. Yeah.
That's good to hear. So I think we can close up the show, but before closing up the show, I usually ask my guests to do this speed round that I throw random words. And since we have two guests now, I will try to make it the random words very different for both of you. So starting off with Raima, you are supposed to basically answer whatever comes to your mind. The first thing, heat wave.
Karachi.
Karachi. Noise.
Again Karachi.
Again Karachi. I should ask a different word. So the answer is in Karachi. And I think as simple as that, climate change.
Global.
For you, Maaz, let's start off with disaster.
Frequent.
Monsoon.
Heavy.
And I think finally, again, for you, climate change.
Something we have to deal with.
Thank you so much for joining us, Maaz and Raima, and we had a pleasure to have you over here. And with that, we end this episode. Stay tuned for more.